Hey everybody, Phil Scott here, and welcome back to the Everyday Wallet. Today we're going to be talking about a very easy way that you can buy your first rental property. And I wish that I had done this years ago. So go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll go ahead and get started. Before we talk about buying your first rental property, I want to remind you that in the video description below, there's a link to Webull. Follow that link and open up an account and deposit $100. After you do that, you'll get 2 free stocks, each valued up to $1,400. So go ahead and check out what you can get today for free. Does the idea of owning a rental property or 2 or 3 sound appealing to you? Certainly does to me, and it's something that I am working towards, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. However, if I had taken this simple approach to buying a rental property, I could have already owned 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 rental properties. Before we talk about this easy way to acquire your first rental property, we're going to talk about some of the regrets that people have when they buy their house. One of the regrets that people have is they buy a house that's too big. The size of it is more than what they really needed. They were out looking at houses and it just looked great. It was awesome. It was their dream house. Had 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a finished basement with a game room, and it was everything they thought they wanted. And they get in and they're just like, actually, it's too much house. Another thing people regret is having too high of a monthly payment. Sometimes when you buy that house that's too big, the monthly payment is too much. Another thing that people regret when they buy a house is the location of the house doesn't meet their lifestyle. Some people prefer outdoors. Some people prefer the nightlife. Some people prefer like the city life, and they get a house that doesn't quite meet their preferences that match their lifestyle. Another thing that people regret is failing to take into account the utility costs, especially when it comes to buying that bigger house. Right? You buy a big house, it might look nice, but it's going to come with a higher monthly payment, and it's also going to come with higher utility bills to heat and cool that place. So got to keep those things in mind. These things, as well as some of the other things that people regret about buying a house, can be avoided with proper planning. If you're out looking to buy a house, plan appropriately. Know what your income is, know what you can afford by yourself to have a house by yourself. Don't try and go too big. If you're a single person, you don't need a 5-bedroom house. If you're a newly married couple, you don't need a 5-bedroom house. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a few moments. Also, know what your lifestyle is. If you're somebody who likes the city life, find something closer to the city. If you like the country life, find something in the country. Find a house that meets your needs in that moment. Now, some of you might be sitting there thinking, well, if I'm married, why wouldn't I want to get like a 5-bedroom house? I'm married, I'm probably going to have kids, and I'm going to grow and my family, and I'm going to want a house to meet those needs down the road. Don't do that. Don't buy a house for down the road. Buy a house for where you're at today. And that may seem counterintuitive. You might be like, well, why would I do that? Why would I waste my money and buying a house that only meets my needs today, when if I plan properly, I can have a house that's going to meet my needs tomorrow? One, we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Yeah, you might be married and you might plan on having 2 or 3 kids, but you could lose your job, or you could get a new job in a new city. And then that dream house that you spent so much time and effort in establishing where you're at right now, 3, 4, 5 years from now, isn't going to matter because you're going to be in a different spot. So plan for what you need today when it comes to buying a house. Don't go super big. Don't find something outside of your lifestyle. And when you're buying a house that matches where you're at today, don't buy a house for you. That's right. Your first house, you shouldn't be buying it for you. Your first house should be purchased so that it can be a rental property. And that's where I messed up. When I bought my first house with my wife, we didn't buy our first rental property. We bought our first house. A house for us to live in, a house for us to remodel, a house to make our own. If I could go back, I would have looked at the house that we're living in. We still would have bought it, but I wouldn't have done some of the things to this house that we've done, or wouldn't have knocked out the wall between the kitchen and living room to make it a bigger open space. Instead, I would have kept it as a small house to be a rental property. And then we would have moved into a bigger house, and then moved into a bigger house, and then moved into another house. My perception of the purpose of this house was wrong. So that's how you buy your very first rental property. Take the perception of the purpose of the home and change it. When the purpose of the home that you're buying is for you to live in it, that's all it's going to be. But if your purpose for buying a home is for it to be a rental property, you're going to approach it differently. Well, then it makes sense to buy a 3-bedroom house that meets the needs that you have today, because even though you might plan on growing a family down the road, you're not down the road yet. And this 3-bedroom house can now generate income to help you get a bigger house when you start having kids. And then if you need a house in another area because you change jobs and you move, well, now you got 2 houses that can help cover those costs. Also, when you purpose a house to be a rental property right out the gate, and even though depending on the type of mortgage you have, you might have to live in it, you can rent out those extra rooms. There, you're turning that property into a rental property right away. Yet you could buy that house and make it your own home and have those rooms be spare rooms for when family comes to town. Or you could be money savvy, right? You could say, hey, I'm going to live in the master bedroom and there's 2 other bedrooms and I'm going to rent them out. I'm going to charge a few $100s per room. There you go. You're covering some of the cost of your mortgage right there by renting out those rooms. And then when you do move out, there's a 3rd room to rent out. So you could either rent it out individually, 3 different bedrooms, or once leases are up, then you can rent the entire house out to a family and cover your mortgage and then some. The reason why this makes so much sense, especially for your first house, you start off with a small, simple house and you lock in that with a fixed rate mortgage for 30 years. That's going to be the same monthly mortgage for 30 years. But the amount that you're going to be able to rent that property out for year after year after year is going to go up as housing rates go up in your area. So you may lock in that house starting at $1,300, but a few years in, you're probably going to be able to rent it out at $1,500 or $1,600. And 20 years into it, you might be able to rent it out for $2,500, depending on how the market goes. None of us can predict the market, but one thing that we can be sure of is that rental rates probably will not go down. So take advantage of that. Take advantage of the fact that you know that rental rates will not go down. They will continue to go up. Lock in that mortgage for your first rental property that you live in for a few years, and then you will be able to generate income month after month on top of that mortgage that you locked in down here because the rental rates continue to climb. Why would you not want to take advantage of an idea like that? Like I said, if I could go back, I would have done that. In my 20s, I would have bought that first house. I just would have done it and bought that first house and found a few folks to rent out those rooms to. And then after I was able to, I would have bought another house, rented out that entire house completely, and then continued to rent out those rooms and generate cash flow by buying rental properties instead of buying homes. Go ahead and comment below on your thoughts. Love to hear whether or not you think that changing the way that you look at that first purchase, whether you're looking at it as a home or a rental property, will change the way that you treat that property and the way it'll impact your net worth. Also, love to hear your ideas for future videos. And in the meantime, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and keep on saving so you can grow your everyday wallet just a little fatter.